Everybody hear me okay? I'm Scott McMillan, and on behalf of AECOM, Southern California Edison, and Gothic Landscape, I'm going to be talking about desert habitat restoration on SCE's Eldorado-Ivanpah transmission project, or the EITP. A little bit of a background on EITP. The project is owned and was built by Southern California Edison in 2012, 2013, completed right before summer of 2013. It's a 35-mile long, 220 kV transmission line that also includes a separate fiber optic telecommunication line. And between these two lines, there was 244 acres of temporary impacts across 326 restoration areas. The restoration project included transplantation of succulents and shrub species, as well as seed collection and dispersal, propagation of sensitive plant species that were impacted by the project. And it also included extensive weed control, both hand weeding and herbicide use. Yes, like lots of glyphosate. I will not be talking about the weeding today given the time limits, but it definitely was an important part of the project. So some of the challenges, the outline today, I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that we faced with the project, as well as go into some of the restoration implementation, again concentrating on seeding and transplantation and planting, as well as talk about some of the adaptive measures that we implemented over the 5 years of maintenance and monitoring on this project. That included additional seeding, propagation, planting, and additional transplantation. And then I'll go over some of the results as well as some lessons learned. So challenges overall, the project was a large project, again, across many, many miles. The project occurred over a couple of years, so different project sites, different construction issues, and different timelines to deal with. As well as being in a very remote mountainous setting, the project essentially extends across the full range of the McMillan mountain range in the southern part of Nevada and Clark County. And that's from the I-15 near Jean all the way down to the Nipton Highway, from the Eye of Mordor in California to the Eldorado Basin outside of Boulder City. Also, during our 5 years of maintenance and monitoring, we only had one of those years that was average or better on rainfall, so we definitely had drought conditions throughout the 5 years. And then OHV activity, not just the recreational OHV activity, but the Mid 400, one of the largest off-road races in North America, occurs here every spring. And that racetrack actually crosses our project at least a dozen times. So implementation, the first things we did was seeding and imprinting. And in order to get the seed, we needed to have seed that was genetically appropriate from local sources. So it was custom seed collection. And we started that early as during construction, even pre-construction. And that seeding occurred so that we could establish seed mixes across 6 different ecological zones to, in our best effort, capture seed mixes that made sense where they were going down. That seeding occurred after construction in 2013, summer and fall 2013, and 195 acres were hand broadcasted and raked into the soil. Simple. But we also did a combination of hand seeding and imprinting immediately after the hand seeding was completed. And this imprinting used an innovative imprinter that our partners Gothic Landscape developed specifically for the project. And this imprinting method allowed us to spread the seed out evenly and get it pressed into the soil. For those of you who have ever had experience with the standard agricultural type imprinters, which can be drum imprinters where the seed mix is put in, when you're trying to put out a mix of grasses, annuals, and perennials, it can be very difficult. The seeds are all different sizes, they have appendages, and it can be very challenging to make those drum imprinters work. We were able to spread that seed out evenly and then press it in. As you can see from that lower picture, it creates a waffle-like pattern that creates divots where the seed can collect as well as rainfall. And then, so we did a total of 49 acres with imprinting. Also with succulent transplantation, prior to construction, any temporary impact site where cactus or succulents were going to be impacted, the cactus and succulents were salvaged and placed in temporary nurseries, usually immediately adjacent to the impact site where they were watered and cared for during construction. When it came time to put the plants back, we got permission from BLM to leave 50% of the plants behind. We We went out and evaluated those that we thought were healthy enough to transplant a second time within a year, and left the ones that we didn't think were behind, but continued to take care of them. Even with that 50% reduction, this was approximately 4,700 cactus and succulents that were planted back in following the seeding effort. The special status succulent species were left in place for the same reason, to make sure we did not endanger them with a second transplantation effort. Those species included the matted cholla, California barrel cactus, and 2 species of desert pincushion. We had 3 additional special status species, 2 penstemon species, the rosy two-tone, beard's tongue, which you see in the middle there, sort of a typical penstemon as far as growth form and flowering. But we also have a white margin penstemon, a very interesting penstemon that is rhizomatous and almost essentially a geophyte, only shows up after rain, and occurs along the edges of the dry lake borders. We also had 1 annual species, the Nylon Pappas grass, that was part of our project. I will not be talking about those programs here, but Linda Robb will be talking later on this afternoon about our sensitive species efforts. So, after the initial planting of the plants that were salvaged from the impact site, over the next 5 years, we had an opportunity to transplant or plant an additional 3,000 succulents and shrubs to enhance cover at sites that where we were still having low cover issues. During that 5 years, we transplanted straight from the adjacent project sites. We also transplanted from plants that had been put into nurseries that had been established for highway projects, as well as plants that had been salvaged and taken to and put in container plants and stored at nurseries. We also transplanted in the middle and early summer months as well. An example of this is a project on case study called the Crossroads construction site. This was our largest and most impacted construction yard for the project. It was where equipment was stored, helicopters worked, high level of activity. The site was watered constantly and driven on some very compacted soil compared to most of the other sites. We ripped that site, we seeded it with imprinting in 2013, and you can see in the upper left the results in 2014 in that rectangle you see. We had very little recovery showing at that point. We reseeded again in 2014, but didn't see any changes. We had an opportunity going into the summer of 2015 where an adjacent solar project was about to be constructed and where there would be permanent impacts on desert scrub to go in and salvage plants. This time we didn't just salvage cactus and succulents, we also salvaged shrub species, including creosote and ambrosia. And you can see in that right picture there, immediately after the installation of those plants. The salvage was done by hand, but also with equipment like backhoe equipment to really be able to excavate plants out, and both hand and equipment was used to replant. Targeting small to medium plants where we could excavate the entire root mass or at least as much as possible. And as much as we tried to preserve root balls with soil, those of you who work in the desert know that DG sandy soil does not stick around very well. So essentially those plants were bare rooted in. Our goal was always to try to plant the salvage material by the end of the day or the next morning at the latest, so it was not sitting out. As you can see in the picture in the lower portion, this is June of this year. That site had no more input, no more plants, no more seed applied to it. You can see not only did those plants survive, but they actually expanded in growth and cover. That site has not been watered for over 3 years. So some of our success criteria that we had for this project included, at the end of year 5, we had lack of significant erosion, evidence of wildlife use, recruitment of seedlings, weed cover below 25%, and then we had that 60% of the baseline for native cover by the end of year 5 at all sites, 50% of the baseline common species. Going into year 5, 61 of our 326 sites were meeting all standards. At the end of year 5, only 13 of our sites were not meeting all of those. Again, primarily that 60% number. 6 we felt were close enough that they could be left to continue to recover on their own, and 7 we determined we needed to do remedial planting. Those sites were primarily where, along the edges and the borders of the dry lake beds, the 2 dry lake beds that the project was adjacent to, that were dominated by 90 to 100% cover with Atriplex polycarpa. At these sites, we had tried seeding Atriplex multiple times, with the low rainfall, we had very little success. So working with the Nevada Department of Forestry out of Las Vegas, they grew out approximately 3,000 plants, mostly Atriplex, and we planted those in January and late spring of this year. Currently, we are still watering those in hopes to bring the native coverage of those sites up to that 60%. So lessons learned for seeding: first off, start your collection early. If you wait till restoration implementation is scheduled, you probably aren't seeding until year 2. If you get a bad year in year 1, there's not much seed available, you may not even be seeding until year 3. So during construction or even pre-construction, start that collection. Imprinting can be effective, especially where the soils are appropriate. Essentially, hard rocky soils are difficult to imprint, but other soils can be amenable to it. And it not only helps with restoration, it also helps with soil stabilization and even your SWIP goals. Reseed early, don't wait till the end. And pray for rain, the sooner the better. And be patient. For the container planting, some of the lessons learned is one, not just succulents and cactus can be moved, but creosote and burr sage and other shrub species. And essentially, the entire desert scrub has potential to be salvaged and transplanted. But to do that, you need to establish large basins like you see in the picture here that will hold up to 5 gallons. Putting on a gallon or 2 is not adequate. Not only are you watering these plants, you are cooling off the soil, especially if you're doing this in summer, trying to keep those roots from dealing with root rot. So you need to cool that soil off in the distance around that shrub so it has time to be active and to absorb that water without rotting. Now you can pray for rain with the container planting, but don't count on it. Don't budget, don't plan on Mother Nature's help. Assume you get none. If you get some, great. You save some money and save some time, but don't count on it. If you don't have budget to water adequately, reduce your planting effort or even consider doing something different like seeding. And with that, I'll take questions.
What was the primary source of your herbivory that was on the cages around the Atriplex form?
Well, I mean, it's rabbits, but what was interesting is what we found is not only the rabbits are an issue, and of course, I'll take a step back, any of the herbivory is greatly increased when you're watering plants and it's the only green stuff out there. Basically, you're providing a salad bar. And even stuff that may not normally eat something distasteful like Atriplex, that you're going to have issues with it. They may be even eating it just for the water. So we actually had ground squirrel issues, which were difficult to cage, them out. But also the harvest rams will come in and harvest the leaves off of the plants. Obviously, the rabbits are the biggest issue. They'll munch those plants to the ground. The other type of herbivory, it seemed like the plants could recover from, particularly the ant herbivory.
Tortoise?
Not that much. I mean, I don't think we ever documented tortoise eating any of our plants. But that's a good question. I mean, we have tortoise in good numbers in this area. It's possible, but we never documented that. We're pretty sure primarily it was the rabbits that were the greatest issue.
With your seeding efforts, do you know what your greatest limitation was, or were you hypothesized was limiting the success rate of your seeding?
Well, it's rainfall. And, so to seed a project that size, when we started seeding, we got some rain before we were done. You miss those opportunities, that one opportunity, and sometimes it's the difference for why half the project site showed success and the other half didn't. So I would say in general, it's not just the amount of rainfall you get, but how soon you get it. If you get it soon, what we found is if you get rain within a week, seeding is very effective. If you don't get rain for 6, 12 months or longer, the effectiveness drops off considerably. So it's the rain and it's how soon that rain shows up.
Your budget, and what was your budget price?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if you guys want to answer that, whether there are some thought. But so Southern California has funding. This is part of the project, and we are meeting the mitigation obligations that were outlined in our plan with BLM. But certainly, it's significantly more than the other projects we've seen this morning. But when we're talking about mitigation on these types of projects, and if you have to achieve these goals to get sign-off with agencies, this is the kind of program that's going to get it done in that 5 years.
Buffalo grass was recently detected in some of these restoration sites. Do you have any idea how it got there?
I mean, when you think about the activities that are out there, you know, just the general off-road activities, utilities, it's hard to know. I mean, obviously, it's just the amount of human activity that's out there bringing that stuff in. It's something that we would always, our crews are always on the watch for. We have our target species to worry about. I would have to say that all of the activities that take place out in the desert are potentially bringing that species and spreading it along with the other weeds that we have. If there was a particular point of, a particular source where that came in, I'm not aware of it.
Where was your seed stored during the interim after the pledge?
So we had the first year, the stuff that was collected at the start was 00 out of Phoenix, where that's where the seed was collected, processed, and cleaned there, and stored there until it was ready to be put out. We also have stored at Goffey's facility when we've had short-term storage needs prior to taking the seed out of the crews. But primarily that upfront seed that was collected, a huge amount, was stored in Phoenix at a seed storage facility.
Sorry if you said this, when you did the 5 gallons of water around plants that you transplanted, how exactly did you apply that and how frequently?
So it's pretty simple. We just take the water truck out and with hoses, basically watering those as gently as possible, but as quickly as possible. So sometimes it's a little rough, and it's maybe not the rate of watering you would do at home, but you got to get the water out there, and we've got to get through the sites. And so water truck is pretty much 100% how we water these sites, and hoses from water trucks.
Other than transition, how did you do
Well, what was interesting, many of these sites were not like that construction laydown yard. So what took place is what we call drive and crush. So that soil was not messed with. They were temporarily parked, say, at the tower site. So many of the sites didn't really have, issues with erosion. So it was really the larger ones. And fortunately, when we're out, at least on this project site, most of those sites were in flat areas where erosion wasn't much of an issue. Like I said, the imprinting in those big sites was very effective. That imprinting presses the soil, and what we found is it actually creates a thin crust at the surface that kind of mimics that kind of crust that you run into out in the desert soils. And it really helps to lock in that surface pretty quickly, the imprinting does. At the hand seed sites, which was usually where we didn't have concerns for it, we didn't do anything other than put out seed with plants. Thank you very much.